Hi, my name is Lisa Huck, founder of Thrive FNL, and I want to thank Abdel for his question about hip disparity. Hip disparity is just uneven hips not being quite symmetrical in their tightness and their function. And Abdel described that he used to have some back pain and then learned that it was hip disparity. So, Abdel, what I want to start with you as a really good starting point is your foot. You mentioned you had flat feet. Well, the foot is so important because it basically is what connects us to the ground and allows us to interface with whatever ground terrain that we're on. When you have a foot that's flat, the arch is sort of fallen. And without knowing a whole bunch about you, I'm going to make some assumptions. Now, when we take a step and the foot hits the ground, the arch is supposed to come down and then come back up as a form of shock absorption. So it's one of our first points that the body shock absorbs that step on every step we take. Now, when you don't have that shock absorption, that shock reverberates up the body through the knee, through the hip to the lower back, can create lower back stress and wear and tear. We're going to start off with making a more functional foot, because if your arch is falling, I'm going to make the assumption that if the arch is falling in, this side of your calf, the outside of your calf, running all the way up the outside of your hamstring to the outside of your hip, is perhaps tighter. I'm going to start out by loosening up your whole ankle with the slant board that I suggested, the Fitter slant board. I'm going to demonstrate that stretch for you, a three-dimensional calf ankle stretch. And then what we're going to do is later on I'm going to teach you how to actually create and condition more of an arch. Condition the muscles of your foot to be able to get into an arch and also flush the bottom of your foot. And then that is going to loosen up everything up the line from the foot to the knee to the hip, and which takes stress off the back. So even though you may not be having back pain now, it doesn't mean that the back isn't taking undue stress, more stress than it's really needing to take, and could create problems later. So I'm going to start off with a three-dimensional foot ankle stretch using the slant board. This is the FitterFirst slant board, and I sent you the link. You can go to the internet and Google. It's probably about, I think it was about $85. We're going to start by putting it up against perhaps a step where you have two sides of the wall or two railings up against a counter. It's best to have a little bit of space in front of you for your other foot. Now, if you don't have a place for to have space in front of you, you can put the other foot on the edge of the board right there. I'm going to start off by going in the forward direction. I'm keeping my heel down, and I'm rocking to where I feel a stretch at the forward end, never making it excruciating. The first few reps of anything we do is meant to be nice and easy and sort of doing reconnaissance, getting information from your body. So I go forward and back. I'm keeping my heel down. After a few reps, maybe about 5 reps, I'm going to start to go right and left, moving from the hips. Now, if your back was aggravated, I would tell you to move more from the whole body. Keep the hips in line with the shoulders. If the back doesn't hurt, let's move the hips, driving through the hips right and left, because that starts the process of loosening up your back even more. Then we're going to go in circular direction. I'm doing about 5 reps a piece, but really it's more about having your body, feeling your body, and having the tissue soften and loosen up. I'm going in a nice round circle, feeling the edges of those ranges. I'm going to change directions. Other direction. My shoe has come unclasped, so I'm slipping a little bit. Switch sides. Do the other foot, so I go forward and back. Now, what I'd like to teach you at a little more advanced level is after a few reps of doing reconnaissance and checking to see if there's any bad pains or red flags for your body, if you're getting the okay to go a little bit harder, after a few reps, go ahead and drive your heel down. I'm using my arms to drive my heel down. If you're at a counter, you're using the leverage of your arms to push your heel down into the ramp, which is going to give you more tension and more of a stretch. I'll do that after I've checked on my body for a few reps. Then I'm going to go right and left again, just like that, really feeling where the lines of tightness are in my body. These movements are meant to be very mindful, not just flying through them, not just doing it for the reps' sake, counting reps. You're doing it to feel the difference in your tissues. Let's go circles. I'm using my arms for leverage. I'm pushing down through my heel. Again, about 5 reps or so, change directions. If you have a tighter side, and most of us do have tight asymmetrical tightnesses, you want to give a little bit more attention to those lines of tightness. So I may push down more in those lines. I may do a little bit more reps. Okay, then I'm going to go back to the first side, and I'm going to do a rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and turn right and turn left. Turn right and turn left. One of the important details about this, when I put my foot on the slant board, my foot is straight. Now you mentioned to me that your feet splay out, they turn out. If you put your foot on the board and you trust just your sense and your orientation of where your foot is, it's probably going to be turned out. So look with your eyes and keep checking on that foot, because it's going to want to turn out in your movements. So I'm turning my hips to turn my ankle right and left. Always be mindful, go slow in your range, go short in your range until you know that your body's okay. Then I'm going to switch sides. A little more advanced level of this is then adding a little bit of lateral motion to the rotational motion, where I'm sort of leaning into those diagonals. Now I prefer this with shoes on because this hurts my bones, but that indicates to me that my foot is tight. So I do like it better with shoes. So that's the 3-dimensional calf ankle stretch. And I'm doing forward, back, side to side, circles in one direction, circles in the other direction, and then I rotate to each side on each leg, 5 to 10 reps apiece. Okay, the next one that I'm going to demonstrate is the quad stretch. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot up on something. This is a true stretch machine that I have. I'm going to also show you some other versions. My foot is up. I'm going to rock back and forth through my hips using those different directions. Now if this jams your back at all or pinches your back, lean forward just a little bit at the hip as opposed to arching at the back for now at first. If this hurts the knee, it's probably because your quads are tight and they're really pulling on your kneecap. So go as far as you can, abide by, honor what the knee is saying, and get up and do the other side. Over time, the quads will release and allow you more time, and that's going to help the problem. So I'm going to go forward and back for a few. I can also go down, which releases the quad, and up, which stretches the quad. Down and up, just like that. After I've done several of those, I'm going to go ahead and lock my hip forward, tighten my butt, tuck my hip, and move from the knee back. Move from the knee back, as opposed to moving from the hips. Now I've locked my hips, tightened my butt, and I'm going to move from the knee back, and it's a much bigger stretch. Don't do that at first. That's a progressive step to more intensity. We always start easier and work to harder. That's called being progressive. And the reason why we do that is to give the tissues a chance to heat up. So I'm moving just like that. I can even add this arm if I want, which gives me even more stretch. I'm tucking that hip, tightening that butt, and then I'll hold it there, reaching the rib cage up, tucking the hip, and then come on down, and then we'll do the other side. Here's what it looks like from the front. So I'm moving forward and back from the hip. I know it's hard for you to see the difference, perhaps, moving from the hip and moving from the knee, because I'm pretty tight here as well. Most people are tight here. Again, if the knee's bothering you, make sure that you have a good cushion. You don't want to be on a bare kneecap on the floor. Have a good, maybe a rolled up or a folded up towel. After I've done several rocks through the hips like that, now if the quads are very tight, start by going down and up like this. I'm going to show you a version of what you can do if you don't have this. Then I'm going to keep the hip locked and move back from the knee. Move back from the knee. I'm tightening this butt. I'm pelvic tilting, tucking my tail, keeping that tail tucked the whole time. And I'm feeling it all the way down through my thigh, actually on the top of my foot a bit. I can add this arm. And so you can see my hip disparity in this. This is a little bit uneven, where my hip is dropped because that quad is so tight. This is my tighter quad. What's funny is that I have problems in this side, but this is my tighter side. So here's a demonstration of the quad stretch with, let's say, perhaps a kitchen stool. I'm bringing a chair so that I can hold on to it. It's always better if you can hold on. So I'm moving, if I'm very tight, I move bend and extend, bend and extend, just like that, several times. This tightens and stretches as I release. So we're going through tightening and releasing, tugging and releasing. And that rocking, tugging motion creates the flow. Then when I want to advance that, I can just go forward and back through the hip. I'm using this foot to pull my hips forward, and it's tightening this thigh as I go forward, releasing, tightening. Now the next step, the more advanced step, then is going to be to bring the arm up, tightening this butt, tucking this hip, leaning back from the knee, just like that. If you feel any pinching in the back, tuck your hip more. Don't lean back as far. It's coming from the arching in the back, just like that. Okay, let's say I don't have a kitchen stool and I have nothing but, let's say, a wall. What I would do is I would go with my foot up against the wall. I'm pointing my toe up. If I'm tighter, I can be farther away from the wall. If I want more intensity, I go farther up the wall. This is also going to stretch the front of your foot. I'm using this for stability. This foot is pushing into the floor to give me stability, leverage. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach this arm up. My belly is tight, and I'm going to reach back through the quad. Now this is advanced because you can see how bent my knee is and how close my butt is getting to my ankle. Now for me, and for most people, these outside quads, that corner of your quad gets tight and it twists the knees out, which twists the feet out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my heel is in line with my hip socket, with my butt bone, let's say. And I'm going to keep it in because it wants to splay out. And that really gets the line of tightness through my corner of my quad, which turns those knees out and turns the foot out, splays the feet out. And I'm going to come on up, tighten my butt, tuck my hip, reach up, feeling a huge stretch to that side, and release. So it's a tug, 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 tucking my hip, tightening my butt, release. This foot is pushing. Tug, 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 and release. Now I can take this in 3-dimension in a few different ways. I can turn my hips this way a little bit and release. I can turn my hips this way and release. Now when we're going against the wall like this, just because of stability, it's harder to do this stretch in 3 dimensions, but this is great right here. Great, okay, I'm going to show you one more version. If I have nothing to work with, and I just have a floor, like I would do this with an athletic team perhaps before a game, I could come with a good padding for my feet, bring my hand here, and pull in. And then what I would do is I would rock forward and forward at the hips, then I would pull at the ankle, and then I would turn right and left. I have this one in a full demonstration, and I'll show you in another video clip. Those are all the quad stretches we can do. Okay, hamstring stretch, Abdel. I've got about a 2-foot block. This could be a table, it could be a chair, it could be a wall, it could be a staircase of steps. That's a great place to do a lot of these stretches. I'm going to put 1 foot up. I always prefer you to be able to hold on to something if you can. It could be a couch, it could be chairs, it could be a counter. It's always better to hold on. If you're not holding on, your body's just going to throw you out into the lines of looseness as opposed to tightness. Important point here, the bottom foot is straight. Make sure that you're checking with your eyes to look at that foot that's straight. Keep this hip forward, and I'm going to reach the opposite arm forward and back. Just like that. Now, it doesn't matter how low you get. What we're doing is we're looking to create tension and then release. Tension and then release. Now, what that's doing, that tugging and releasing, is creating blood flow. Bringing the oxygen in, the nutrients in, the heat and the hydration in to soften up the tissues. Those soft, hydrated tissues are healthier tissues, and they're also tissues that won't rip as easily, won't strain as easily, and they're also tissues that will decompress the joint. Tight tissues don't allow a good looseness, a proper, appropriate looseness to the joint. You don't want a joint to be too loose. I'm going forward for several reps. I can give you 5 as a guideline, but honestly I do more than that here till I feel a softening and a changing in that back of the leg. Now we call this the hamstring, but this line of tissue goes from the bottom of the foot all the way up the back of the leg, all the way up to the top of the head. So it lines the whole back of the body. Then I'm going to go diagonally to the inside. And see how I'm holding on here? If I had nothing to hold on to, it's okay. You get a stretch, but it's not as efficient because your body will wiggle out of the tightness. Again, several reps, a little detail. Pull the pinky toe back. Don't point your toes. Pull the toes back, and especially the pinky toe. I can use a little bit of static stretching by stopping and dropping the head, supporting my weight with my arms, dropping the back. This is a great back stretch. Your back will love this. And then I'm going to go to the opposite diagonal. This is the outside diagonal. And I'm moving outside just like that, going across that leg. This is much harder. So you're really going to feel this one. Now what happens here is my foot starts to turn out because of the tightness. What I could do is I could hold this straight as I move my torso. This, I really feel this. This is a hamstring stretch right through there. Now the last thing I could do is I could hold my hips straight and square, and I can shift right and left, and that gets me some more as well. And I'll come up out of that and then do the other side. So that's the hamstring stretch done in 3 dimensions. Forward, inside diagonal, then outside diagonal, and if you wanted to, some right and left with square hips. Hamstrings. Okay, one last thing that I want to say is when you're doing the dynamic core routine, which is the standing core routine, where we're moving in all these directions. Exercise number 6, we turn the toes out first, and then we rotate. Knees are soft. They're not locked and they're not bent. They're soft. And what this does is it collapses the arch and flushes the arch. Now, your arch is already somewhat collapsed. It's long and looser, I'm guessing. The opposite exercise, which is when we turn the toes in, this one, when I turn to this side, this foot is going up into an arch. So I want you to pay really specific attention when you do this one. Be very mindful of what you're feeling. When you turn into that leg, your foot arches up, and that's going to be the maximum arch that you ever get with a flatter foot. So I believe this one would be a really good one for you, because with a flatter foot, the flesh of your foot isn't extending and contracting, so you're not flushing that foot. This is going to allow you flush of that foot. Notice what you're feeling. Notice the changes in your feet over time, because we're making them more segmental. a lot of times over time, the feet get stuck together. There's many bones in the feet, they end up getting stuck together, and that flesh gets stuck together, and it doesn't work in segments and in parts like it's supposed to. Even though it's supposed to work as a synergistic team, we also all need all the parts pulling in all the directions that they pull in. So this one is a great one for your feet, for a flatter foot. So I'm so excited that I got to talk to you and give you some suggestions. Use your judgment. There's a lot more we could do. Let's start there. Be cautious. Obviously, I want you to be mindful and be in connection with your body when you're doing things. That's really how you're going to learn. You're going to learn little different details that work for your body that I may not even know, that I can't know. So make sure that you stay in contact with me and you ask me lots of questions.